Good evening, my unfortunate guests. I am Dr. Sinister, your guide through the shadowed forests of terror. Tonight, as the biting cold gnaws at the edges of your soul and the snow falls like whispers of doom, I invite you to gather closer. For tonight, I shall unravel for you 3 chilling tales of the cursed, the hunted, and the beast within. These are not mere stories. They are warnings, tales of the werewolf. Beware, for in the cold of the winter night, their howls pierce not only the air but the veil of your deepest fears. And now, let us begin. The Appalachian wilderness in the dead of winter has a way of silencing even the bravest of souls. Under the oppressive weight of a moonlit blizzard, the forest becomes a crypt, its skeletal trees swaying in the icy wind, whispering secrets to the shadows. This was the world Jack and Mary Caldwell found themselves in, a place where isolation thrived and safety was a mere illusion. The young couple, married less than a year, had set out on a winter getaway to rekindle their struggling marriage. Jack, a rugged outdoorsman, had promised Mary the beauty of untouched nature. But what awaited them in the heart of the storm was a truth darker than anything Jack could have imagined. The blizzard arrived faster than the forecast had warned. The pair had planned to reach the cabin, a remote retreat deep in Black Hollow, by nightfall, but the snow piled higher with each passing hour, obscuring the narrow mountain road and forcing their SUV to a crawl. "Maybe we should turn back," Mary suggested, her voice tight with unease as she peered through the frosted windshield. "We're closer to the cabin than the highway," Jack replied, gripping the wheel. "Just trust me." Mary said nothing, though her gaze lingered on the pale streaks of snow that slashed across the moonlit trees. Trust, she thought bitterly, was what they had come here to rebuild. When the SUV slid to a halt, its tires buried in a drift, Jack's optimism faltered. He grabbed a flashlight and their gear, insisting they walk the remaining mile to the cabin. The snow stung their faces, and the wind howled like a living thing, but Jack pressed forward. It wasn't long before Mary stopped, tugging at Jack's sleeve. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" he asked, scanning the woods with the flashlight. A low, guttural growl rose from the darkness, carried on the wind. It was distant, but unmistakable. Jack dismissed it as a coyote, though he quickened their pace. Then they found the tracks. At first they appeared to be wolf prints, but as they followed the trail, the size became apparent. Whatever had passed through was enormous, too large to be natural. "We're almost there," Jack assured her, though his own voice betrayed his fear. The cabin appeared as a shadow against the snow, its weathered timbers sagging under years of neglect. Jack forced the door open, and they stumbled inside, their boots crunching on the frozen floorboards. He quickly lit the old oil lamp, casting flickering shadows against the walls. Mary collapsed onto the dusty couch, her breath visible in the frigid air. Jack secured the door with a heavy beam, then moved to light a fire. But the growling returned, closer this time. "Jack," Mary said, her voice barely above a whisper. She pointed toward the frosted window, where the shadow of a hulking figure passed by. Jack grabbed his hunting rifle, heart pounding. "Stay behind me." The first attack was a blur. The creature, its fur black as coal, its eyes glowing like embers, smashed through the fragile window, shards of glass scattering across the room. It moved on all fours, but with an unnerving, almost human agility. Jack fired, the gunshot deafening in the confined space, The beast recoiled but didn't fall. Instead, it let out a bone-chilling snarl and lunged again. Mary screamed as Jack was thrown against the wall, his rifle clattering to the floor. She grabbed a fire poker and swung with all her strength, striking the beast across its snarling maw. It retreated momentarily, giving her just enough time to drag Jack toward the back door. Outside, the storm had worsened. The moon's light struggled against the flurry of snow, creating an eerie half-darkness. Jack, bloodied but conscious, stumbled alongside Mary as they fled into the woods. The growls pursued them, accompanied by the crunch of massive paws on snow. The beast was not alone. Mary turned briefly, her breath hitching as she glimpsed another pair of glowing eyes in the distance. Then another. "It's a pack," she gasped. They ran, slipping and falling on the ice-laden ground. The creatures stayed just out of reach, their eyes burning in the shadows like specters. The couple reached a frozen stream, its surface shimmering under the pale moonlight. Jack, desperate, turned to face the pursuing wolves, his hunting knife the only weapon he had left. Mary tried to pull him away. "We can't fight them." "We don't have a choice," he said, his voice resolute. The first wolf lunged, and Jack drove the knife into its throat. Warm blood splattered across the snow as the creature yelped and fell. But the others circled closer, their growls growing louder, more feral. Suddenly, a deafening howl echoed through the forest. The pack stopped, their ears twitching before retreating into the trees. Jack and Mary, trembling and bloodied, didn't wait to question their reprieve. They stumbled through the woods until they saw the faint glow of the highway in the distance. They never spoke of the attack. When asked about their injuries, they lied, claiming they had fallen while hiking. But the fear lingered, a shadow that followed them long after the bruises faded. And in the Appalachian wilderness, the howls continued, growing louder with each moonlit blizzard. The town of Black Hollow sat quietly at the edge of dense, ancient woods that stretched for miles into the heart of the Appalachian wilderness. Though the townsfolk were used to the unsettling howls of wolves in the night, this winter was different. The howls were deeper, more guttural, carrying an unnatural resonance that sent chills down spines and locked doors earlier than usual. The storm had rolled in swiftly, blanketing the valley in thick snow, isolating the town from the outside world. For Sheriff Eli Granger, the snowstorm was not the only thing unsettling him. Over the past month, livestock had been slaughtered, their bodies ripped apart with a ferocity unlike any predator he had encountered. What truly worried him was the disappearance of townsfolk. First, a woodsman who hadn't returned from trapping, then a teenager who wandered too far from home. Eli stared at the note that lay crumpled on his desk, left behind by the missing woodsman before his disappearance. It read, "Beware the Hollow." Sheriff Granger and two townsfolk, Nathan Hale and his younger brother Tom, ventured into Black Hollow as the snowstorm abated for the first time in days. The tracks they followed led them deeper into the woods, to a place rarely visited, a shadowed glen where the trees grew unnaturally close, their gnarled branches entwined like grasping fingers. Nathan halted suddenly. "You feel that?" he asked, his breath visible in the icy air. Eli nodded, gripping his rifle tighter. The air was heavier here, laden with a metallic tang. The snow beneath their boots seemed undisturbed, yet the sensation of being watched was palpable. "Maybe we turn back," Tom whispered. But before anyone could respond, an ear-splitting howl erupted, freezing them in place. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything they had imagined. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, its fur was matted and black as pitch. Its face was vaguely lupine, but grotesquely distorted, with glowing amber eyes and a mouth that stretched unnaturally wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "The beast," Nathan whispered, his voice trembling. Before they could react, the beast lunged at Nathan, its claws raking across his chest. He let out a strangled scream as he was flung into the air, landing in a heap against a tree. "Run!" Eli shouted, firing his rifle. The bullet struck the creature but barely slowed it, the impacts only angering it further. It turned toward Eli, snarling and charged. Tom stumbled backward, his rifle shaking in his hands as he fired wildly. The shots missed, but the noise momentarily diverted the beast's attention. Eli took the opportunity to grab Nathan's limp form and drag him toward a nearby outcropping of rock. "Keep it busy," Eli yelled to Tom, who stood frozen in fear. The beast lunged again, this time catching Tom's leg. His scream echoed through the hollow as the creature dragged him toward the shadows. Eli's gut twisted as he watched his companion disappear into the darkness, his cries fading into silence. Eli managed to pull Nathan into a narrow crevice between the rocks, shielding them both from view. Nathan's breathing was shallow, his chest soaked in blood. "What is that thing?" Nathan croaked, his eyes wide with terror. Eli shook his head, his mind racing. He had heard the old legends whispered by the town elders about a creature cursed to haunt the hollow, a guardian of something ancient, something evil. The beast's growls echoed nearby, its heavy footfalls crunching in the snow as it searched for its prey. Eli gripped his knife, knowing their chances of survival were slim. The creature's glowing eyes appeared at the entrance of the crevice, its snarl sending a shiver down Eli's spine. It reached in with a massive claw, swiping blindly. Eli slashed at its hand, causing it to recoil with a roar of pain. Suddenly, a chorus of howls erupted in the distance. The beast froze, its ears twitching. The sound was different. Not the beast's own howl, but that of wolves. Many wolves. Eli's heart pounded as the howls grew louder, closer. The beast let out a guttural growl and bounded away into the darkness, leaving Eli and Nathan trembling in their hiding place. With the beast gone, Eli mustered the strength to carry Nathan back through the woods. As they approached the town, the howls of the wolves faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The survivors would never speak of what happened in Black Hollow that night, but the scars on Nathan's body and the haunted look in Eli's eyes spoke volumes. Unknown to the townsfolk, the wolves that had driven the beast away were not ordinary. Their glowing eyes watched from the tree line, as though warning anyone who dared to return. The town of Black Hollow, shrouded in a frosty stillness, never fully recovered from the terror of the beast. Sheriff Eli Granger and Nathan Hale, both scarred by their ordeal, spoke little of what they had encountered in the hollow. But the woods had a way of keeping secrets and exacting revenge. The wolves had saved Eli and Nathan that night, yet their glowing eyes hinted at an unnatural intelligence, an awareness far beyond that of mere animals. It wasn't long before the townsfolk realized the terror was far from over. The howls began anew as the winter deepened, first as faint echoes carried on the wind, then growing closer and more frequent. Livestock vanished from barns, their mangled remains found on the outskirts of the forest. At first, the townsfolk dismissed it as wolves emboldened by the harsh winter, but the attacks escalated. Then came the disappearances. First, the school teacher, Miss Ada, vanished on her way home. Her bonnet was discovered torn and bloodied in the snow. Days later, a trapper named Wallace was found dead near his cabin, his body mauled, but surrounded by paw prints, far too large to belong to any known wolf. "Sheriff, you've seen it, haven't you?" Nathan demanded one evening, his voice low but urgent. His injuries had healed, but his nights were restless, plagued by nightmares of the beast. Eli hesitated, gripping his mug of coffee tightly. "What I saw was more than a wolf, Nathan, and I think we've only seen the beginning." It was late January when the first sighting of the pack occurred. Old Widow Calhoun, half mad from grief and drink, stumbled into the town square, her hands shaking. "They're coming," she cried, eyes like fire, wolves bigger than men. Eli and a few armed townsfolk followed her to her cottage on the outskirts of town. They found the door torn from its hinges, or the floorboards gouged by claw marks. Widow Calhoun's dog lay in a heap by the fireplace, its body mangled. "They're not just wolves," Eli said grimly, examining the tracks outside. "They're hunting us." Eli gathered a group of townsfolk to defend Black Hollow, arming them with rifles, torches, and whatever weapons they could muster. They fortified the church at the center of town, its stone walls offering some protection from the icy wilderness. As night fell, a dense fog rolled in, muffling sounds and obscuring vision. The howls began, first in the distance, then circling closer. Eli stood at the church's doorway, his rifle trained on the darkened street. Suddenly, the first of the pack emerged. A massive wolf-like creature with glowing eyes and a hulking frame, its fur matted with ice. It moved on all fours, but with a predatory grace that spoke of something far more sinister. The others followed, their forms emerging from the fog like specters. There were 6 in total, their eyes burning like embers in the night. "They're here," Nathan whispered, gripping his rifle. The creatures struck swiftly, their speed blurring the line between beast and nightmare. They leapt onto rooftops, tearing through windows and walls with ease. Bullets seemed to slow them, but only temporarily. One of the creatures smashed through the church's side door, its claws ripping through the barricade. Eli fired point blank into its chest, the impact forcing it back, but not stopping it. Nathan threw a lantern at another, engulfing it in flames. It howled in agony, thrashing wildly before retreating into the night. The townsfolk fought valiantly, but the pack was relentless. By dawn, the town was in ruins. As the survivors regrouped, Nathan and Eli ventured into the woods, determined to end the threat once and for all. They followed the tracks deep into Black Hollow, to a clearing where the snow had melted in an unnatural circle. There, they found the remains of the beast they had encountered weeks before. Its body was torn apart, surrounded by the tracks of the pack. "They killed their own," Nathan said, his voice trembling. Eli nodded. "It wasn't just about us. This was about dominance. The pack doesn't want anyone, man or beast, challenging them." As they turned to leave, the faint glow of eyes appeared in the tree line. The pack was watching, their intent clear. Black Hollow belonged to them now. Eli and Nathan returned to town, warning the survivors to leave Black Hollow behind. The town was abandoned by spring, its once bustling streets reclaimed by the forest. The stories of the beast and the pack became local legends, whispered around campfires for generations. But for those who had survived, the memory of glowing eyes in the darkness was a reminder of the horrors that still lurked in the Appalachian wilds. And on moonlit winter nights, the howls of the pack could still be heard. a chilling warning to any who dared venture too close to Black Hollow.